We are live with a special edition of the Pulling Each Other Along show. And I've got somebody that deserves this kind of introduction. There we go. So we've got the Pulling Each Other Along show. This is a special edition. We'll probably wait a second to let some people connect with us. But I've got some special guests on the show with me today. My name is Doug Cornfield. I'm a co-author along with Todd Sivan. I think Todd said he was going to jump into the show at some point as well. We'll see if he does. But we have one of our chapter contributors and somebody that was actually, we played a trick on somebody not too long ago. And so without further ado, I'm going to invite in Brandi and Gavin Lawrey to the show. They are contributors in the Pulling Each Other Along book, the coming book that we're going to be talking about. Hi, guys. How you doing tonight?
We're great. How are you?
I'm all right. I've had a cold actually for the last week. And so that kind of put me low energy. Not a great time to get low energy when I'm trying to kick off this Kickstarter. But
you don't have anything to do or anything.
You just kind of fight through it. I fought through it all week and feeling better today. I wouldn't say I'm 100%, but I'm probably getting close. And so hopefully I get back to my running and walking. I didn't do a lot of that in the last 3 or 4 days. So, but it's good to have you guys on. Brandi, why don't you start by just kind of sharing your memory of how we connected? Let's start there.
That's a good place to start.
Yeah.
So it was quite a few years ago. My daughter, Mackenzie, who is a senior now, was nominated and awarded the Pulling Each Other Along award. And she was nominated by a PEOA professional at hers and Gavin's school. And she thought that Gavin was going to get the award. She had no idea that it was for her. And so we met you and Dave and other Dave, all at the Miracle Stadium in Florida. And we went live on the air, and unbeknownst to her, when they announced who was getting the award, they said her name instead of Gavin's, and she was very confused. But
we were all somewhat confused that day a little bit.
Yeah, it was a busy day. But she had been nominated for everything that she does to support Gavin, and she had written and published a book when she was 9. And all the proceeds from that book go to the United Mitochondrial Disease Foundation. So she just has an amazing heart and has pulled Gavin along since he was born.
Well, just so happens I have a little picture of that day all queued up. And I don't like this picture because I'm a bunch of pounds heavier. And so is Dave Stevens. We both have lost a lot of weight since all this. But there's Gavin in his younger days, right after we tricked his sister and she was getting the award. Not him. And so that was real fun because that's the only time that we ever did a Pulling Each Other Along award live on media. That was actually live on the news. And so
it was so that was made it even better because she didn't know how to react and she looked at us so confused. And
right.
Gavin and Dave were like kismet. It was like they were meant to be best friends, and they still are. And they have this amazing relationship and this incredible bond. And so that day ended up being just the start of a lot of our incredible journey together. So
right. I know for me, that day got weirder. And we're going to bring some other people onto this show here in just a minute. But because Dave, if I can give some backstory, Dave often will send me clippings in a newspaper, or he'll send me something, and Dave does everything via writing. So literally, I'll get this long handwritten letter, and you probably have some of those letters.
I get those too, yeah.
And so it's easier for him to write a letter and send it in the mail still than to type it. The polio actually affected his left side of his body, so typing with his left hand is not as easy, and so he just assumed write everything longhand. Anyway, one of the things that he did is he saved a newspaper clipping from several years before this event. about you guys,
Yeah.
that he had seen, and he was instantly connected to, I think, Gavin, and what because Dave obviously being a polio, relates to you guys and relates to Gavin in so
Yeah,
many ways. And
absolutely.
he asked me to try to find you guys and reach out to you. Well, sometimes I give effort to that stuff. Sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, it's what for? I mean, how hard is that? And usually I'll call the newspaper, but they don't just give people,
Yeah.
away. Oh, here's their personal cell phones, so
Yeah.
we never connected. But interestingly, because all of the Pulling Each Other Along award was done through the phone, and we actually hadn't met you until we actually met you that day when we're giving you and your daughter the award.
Right.
And all of a sudden, Dave, light bulbs start going off in his head, and he's like, I know this boy. And so we started realizing, and he went back that day, still had the newspaper article of you guys, and
Yes.
and handed it to me and said, that's the kid I wanted you to connect with 2 years prior. And
Yeah.
so it was meant to be in this way, and it was really cool. And and obviously your daughter getting the Pulling Each Other Along award was special. We love giving that award away to anybody, but especially to children, especially somebody like your daughter who's helped out her brother, your son, in some tremendous ways. And so that's kind of connecting the dots. And so then when we got the Pulling Each Other Along book that's coming up, which if people aren't familiar with this, their story is going to be highlighted in the Pulling Each Other Along book that's about ready to be released. We have a Kickstarter starting soon, and we're going to ask for everybody's help, and we're going to need everybody's help. And without further ado, I am going to bring in a third party to this show. Todd Sivan, how you doing tonight, Todd? Is your audio all connected?
Give me 1 second. Now it is.
Oh, there you go. So
now
I don't want you whispering at me. There you go.
Trouble's ready. He's on the show now.
I know. I was just thinking, if Doug got paid by the word for that soliloquy he just opened with, that monologue, we wouldn't need to do a Kickstarter campaign. 6 minutes and 53 seconds without letting your guests talk.
Hey, that's the way it goes sometimes. But when you have the controls, that's what we got to do. But I'm also waiting for the audience. I can see when the audience is showing up.
Got it.
And so I am talking when the audience isn't there, but now the audience is getting larger. So now we can give you 3 words, and I'll cut you off.
Got it. Well, I was going to say that I've now been connected to the two of you for, I don't know, maybe it's almost 2 years.
Yeah.
And this is the first we've actually met. So thank you for sticking with us for the couple years. I'm going to say Gavin is much better looking than I thought he was.
What do you say about your face? Do you think you're good looking?
Yeah, I call it my money maker.
He calls it his money maker.
Oh, I believe that. See, Gavin, I have a face only for radio. A face that only a mother could love. My mother used to tie the dog's bone to my neck just to get the dog to play with me. So they were the lucky ones.
Yeah, well, I don't want to comment on the face for radio, but I have to 100% 1,000% agree. It's just the way it is. You got some fans coming on here. I like it. We've got people saying hi to you from the Facebook page, and I know Gavin has a lot of fans, and I'm hoping Dave Clark hustles back. He's trying to get on the show. He had a family commitment thing today, and he definitely wants to say hello to Gavin. If not, we'll try to do that in tomorrow's show. And we do have another kickoff show tomorrow, where I have a bunch of the people involved in the book that are going to be on this long show. So tune in tomorrow as well on our Pulling Each Other Along Facebook page and or YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. So
Doug,
go ahead, Todd.
Can they share a little bit of their story with the audience for those who aren't familiar?
Yeah, I think so. I think that'd be great.
So Gavin was born premature, but he was completely healthy when we were able to bring him home 11 days later. And he lived a completely healthy, normal life. And then when he was 18 months old, he had his first seizure. And from that moment on, things just kind of started declining in his health. He went from being able to read to over 200 words to barely
Hi, Aunt Lisa.
He says, "Hi, Aunt Lisa," to barely being able to read at all. He was losing his fine motor skills. He wasn't able to write. He would have really bad tremors. Like he couldn't open an envelope. He was forgetting words for things. Like he would point at things and he would know what it was, but he couldn't think of what it was called. And it was quite the journey. We kept taking him to doctor after doctor, and they all kept saying, something's wrong, but I don't know what. So everybody agreed that there was something going on and something behind the seizures and something that was causing the seizures. But we didn't get that answer until he was about 4.5, almost 5 years old. His neurologist and his GI doctor and his cardiologist had all suggested that he go and be tested for mitochondrial disease, which was a scary thing. I remember an oncologist telling me that he wished he could tell me that Gavin had neuroblastoma because that was one of the things that they thought it could have been. And because then he would have a chance of curing him, but whatever he had was much worse. And that, I just remember sinking my heart. It was one of the hardest things I think I've ever heard. And so we went, and he had to get a muscle biopsy. So he had to go under for anesthesia. And then they took some fluid from his spine in order for to get the positive diagnosis. And I remember the reason I decided my chapter is kind of written focused on how Gavin has pulled us along. Even though there are so many people, including you all, who have helped pull our family along and pull Gavin along. Gavin to me he's the center of he's the center of it all. And he is the force that pulls. And when they took him away from that anesthesia and putting him under, I never would cry in front of him. I always cried after he left. And that was the first day that I cried in front of him as they were rolling him away. And he yelled, "Stop, stop, stop." And he made me come to him, and he put his hands on my cheeks and he said, "You be brave and I'll be brave." And that that became his slogan for everything, was be brave. And he has been brave every step of the way ever since that moment, or even before. But that's the kind of inspiration he gives. So unfortunately, we did get a positive diagnosis for mitochondrial disease, and there is no cure. But he is not just brave, but he is a fighter who's full of hope. So he keeps pushing and pulling all at the same time.
Well, speaking of fighters, why don't we have this gentleman who doesn't have his camera correct, but that's all right. Got the wrong camera on. There
you go.
I did.
Wait a minute.
There you
How's
go.
that?
That's better, Mr. Clark. Better late than never. But you did really good, actually. I was thinking you're going to be a lot later. So hopefully you had fun with your family time and seeing your old buddy.
Wait a minute. I got to get my volume up.
All right, you can't hear us?
Gotcha. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're coming through good today.
Hey, Gavin, Brandi.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, Todd.
Hey, I was just looking at your face and I was thinking, no, that's a moneymaker. Right, Gavin?
Yeah, right.
Face that only a mother could love.
the money maker. Here was the money maker. Let's see. He loves this picture. This is Dave back in his day.
Oh,
Ouch.
There's the money maker. There's the money maker.
Yeah,
So,
hands
anyway.
down. Gavin, did you say hi to Sam?
Come here, Peanut. My granddaughter's trying to get on the show. She's something else.
Aw.
So very good. No, it was real fun to see you guys connect, and I know you guys have. There's one touching story. I'm gonna let maybe let Dave share it. One day, I don't know who's the best person to share this. You guys tell me. But one day, Dave kind of made a surprise visit to you guys' church.
Mm-hmm.
And who wants to tell that story? You, Dave?
Let Gavin, Brandi tell that story.
All right, here you go.
Okay. Gavin had been inviting Dave to church, and Dave's a busy man. We know this. And so it was quite a few months after his original invitation. And one day, here comes Dave strolling in his scooter. And
I wasn't sure if it was ever going to happen.
he didn't think Dave was ever going to come. But so when he came strolling in, how did you feel?
Happy and excited.
Yeah, he jumped right out of his seat and lunged into Dave's arms. He had his blanket in his hand because he would fall asleep at church a lot. He falls asleep a lot. That's part of his disease, but he would even fall asleep at church. And so with his blanket in his hand, he just dove into Dave's lap. And good thing he had some back support in his chair, otherwise he would have knocked him over, I think. But he grabbed onto Dave, and for the rest of that church sermon, as if Dave was his security blanket. It was a beautiful moment, and he was just so thrilled to have his buddy there by his side.
So Gavin, why do you think you had that response to Mr. Clark? Do you remember?
Just because I immediately connected with him.
Yeah. So it's because he's trouble just like you?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of why.
That's a big part of it. They're double trouble, these two.
They sure are.
A lot of my pa.
He reminds him a lot of his pa.
Gotcha.
And you have a special relationship with your pa, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, Gavin.
Yeah.
I don't want to steal your thunder, but I may have mitochondrial disease too because I fall asleep in church all the time as well.
Did you get a letter from the pastor saying that it was okay because Sundays were meant to sleep, meant to rest?
I did not.
Because Gavin did.
Gavin got a
And being Jewish, I think I'm just making up the whole story anyhow.
Yeah.
I don't know if I fell asleep in church or temple, but
yeah, he would get very upset when he would fall asleep in church because he would feel bad as if he was being disrespectful. And so one day the pastor found out that he cried afterwards. And so he came and saw him the next week and gave him a card with a handwritten letter in it, telling him that it was okay. And I think Gavin, so then from then on, Gavin would snore louder than the music, I think, half the time.
It's easy to do. Nobody's judging you here, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Nobody's judging you here. So, hey, Brandi, another thing that you got pulled into, and I don't even want to say pulled into, you took the bull by the horns.
Me, never.
Never.
Yeah, I won't do that.
Is in the creation of the cover of the book.
Yes, and actually, the photographer is on.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, no, she did. Actually, she got some serious kudos. If you haven't seen the cover, obviously this is the cover of the coming book, Pulling Each Other Along, and let's first off thank her because
Shannon
so
Jordan
my web developer, and he's a graphic artist and an artist. When he saw that photo, he was like, kudos, and he's really, really picky about these things.
Yeah,
he was just like, this is a great photo. So what were you thinking when you helped us? Because we were struggling. Todd will tell you, we were getting some things sent to us of people, graphic artists, pros, sending us some the book, even the book publisher sending us some photos. And to say we weren't pleased is an understatement.
Right.
It just didn't fit what we were trying to look for. And then you kind of stepped in. I'll say stepped in. That's very politely. And really helped pull the concept along. And I'll give you a lot of the credit for the concept, even though we kind of rattled it together. I would say you created the concept. So what do you think of, and what were you thinking of when we pulled this together?
So to me, I instantly thought of having Dave in front of the ocean, because I feel like when you look out and you look into the sky there and you look in the ocean, it just seems limitless. And there's no end in sight. And I feel like Dave's story has taught so many people and has the ability to continue to teach people that life doesn't have to have limits, regardless
You
of your.
can do whatever you want to do.
That's right. Regardless of your circumstances, there doesn't have to be a limit. And so, to me, like the ocean was a must. And like having him looking out to it, I felt was telling, because it was him like looking forward with two of his buddies. He had Gideon and Gavin alongside him, kind of looking at him. In my opinion, it ends up looking like as though they're looking up to him as their hero, someone that has pulled them along as he struggles in his own journey, and teaching them that life has no limits. And then we brought in the arms and hands of some other, to represent some of the other authors and stories in the book, all kind of crisscrossing and holding on to each other. And our thought was like, they're all connected and they're all pulling and maybe pushing, whatever it was, but they were doing it all together. And there was nothing that was going to break that bond of pushing and pulling without a limit. So that was kind of my vision and what I was looking for and thinking.
Right. And we wanted different arms in there best we could. It was a hot day, so we didn't want to be,
it was a really hot day.
Right. We didn't have makeup people to take away our sweat and all that kind of stuff. We didn't have
I have another opinion of that cover.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Clark.
I think Brandi liked the cover because it shows my best side.
Your backside.
There might be some
That's
truth.
another reason why I love him.
Gavin just said that's the other reason why he loves Dave.
Yeah. It is kind of the best look that he can give at this point in his life. So I like it. I don't know why you're supporting Nike again today, but
Well, I'm trying to get us some money, man.
There you go. Just Nike, if you can help us out, that'd be great. Of course, it'll be Adidas.
I can never figure out which way to go. Just do it.
There you go. Good job, Dave.
So even when Dave got the Heroes of Sports Award winner and all the ESPN guys and all that kind of stuff, he basically told Nike that they had stole his motto of just do it. And dream. Two types of dreamers. There's dreamers that dream and dreamers that do. And not to go too off in the Dave story, but I think we have enough people. I don't know if they're as familiar with the whole inspirational side of this story. So I want to play a quick video of Dave sharing his experience in first grade. And so this is a quick video. And here it goes. This was the inspiration behind the Pulling Each Other Along Award.
I love
that. When I came out of the reconstruction home in Ithaca, New York, I was wearing a little set of leg braces and walking with crutches. Once I started attending grade school, I was made to feel different. We had a field trip slated for first grade, and it was walking, maybe 5-6 blocks. I was deathly afraid of holding the class up. Our teacher had told us 2 weeks before this was going to happen, so for 13 straight days I've got anxiety and I'm getting nervous about this thing coming up. Day of the trip, one of my little first grade classmates, and I never forgot his name, Ernie Pound, pulled his little red Flyer wagon up and he said, "Dave, jump in, I want to pull you." That changed that whole day for me, made it a fun trip, enjoyable instead of the anxiety. It all washed away when Ernie brought his wagon up. 50 years later, I had a reunion with this guy. We were doing a book signing. Unknown to me, they had found him. And who's this to?
Sign it, Ernie Pound.
You found him, I can't believe it.
Thank you very much.
Still gets me. Because 50 years later, that guy didn't know what he did for me. But he does now.
And there it is. There's Dave Clark making everybody who watched that cry.
I was just gonna say, I really you always say that I make everyone cry. That one's your fault.
Well, it's funny when we share that story in different keynotes and things like that, and even share it to people that have heard the story. which I did when we were promoting the children's book, A Pound of Kindness. Basically, I asked the audience if they'd heard that story before, and there were several people that raised their hands with tears in their eyes saying, yes, I did, but they were still like streaming with tears. And it's an amazingly powerful story. One of the things that I love is, Dave, how many times do you think you shared the story at this point, Dave?
Too many.
Well,
Too many
hopefully not
minutes.
too many. Hopefully there's a lot more to come, to be honest. But enough to say a lot.
Oh yeah.
And it's interesting because we've shared this story. We've shared it publicly. And I still have to kind of be there because Dave will still get so emotional. I got to give him a few minutes or a few seconds to kind of catch his breath often. And what gets you the most? You always tell people what gets you the most.
That reunion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read the book the other day at a school, and I got goosebumps up my arms every time I see that clip. And I shared this the other day when we had Courtney on, but I made the statement when Dave was pulled in the wagon, he was no longer an outcast because people wanted to pull him. And a first grader raised his hand and said, no, he wasn't an outcast. Now he's an incast. And I thought, first of all, that's a great word. It's a word that needs to exist in our vocabulary. But I think it summarizes it so well. Instead of not being included, you're included in everything. And that's, in summary, what this book is all about, too. It's about inclusivity, but it's not just Gavin's story. It's a way for him to thank and acknowledge the people who pulled him along during his most trying time. So, Gavin, there were times you probably felt like an outcast, but when tens of thousands of people read your story, you will instantly become an incast. And I guarantee that. You're going to be an incast. We'll get T-shirts that say, I am an incast.
I think he already is one.
He does?
Oh, I think he already is an incast.
Oh, he is an
Incast.
incast.
Yeah,
I was going to say, where'd you get the T-shirt?
He has, when he just upgraded to a motorized wheelchair, but when he had the push and pull one, the girls would fight over who got to push Gavin through school in the hallways.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
Dave knows that experience. He can understand that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And now they ask who can help with his oxygen. He loves football, but unfortunately he can't play football. But it didn't stop him from doing something to be part of it, to still feel part of it. And so he had like 4 seniors this year that he just adored on our varsity team, and they knew it. And so one of them, named Mitchell, he reached out to the coaches and said, is there a way that we can include Gavin one day for one of the games? And can we just let him be there with us? And instead of one game, they invited him to be down on the field with them. Every day he felt well enough to, every game. And so he got to go down with the football team, and he would ride his little wheelchair over to the stand in front of the student section, and the student section would cheer for him. What did they cheer?
Let's go, Gavin.
And the high school student section would cheer for Gavin. So, and then Gavin makes a joke about that. What does he say about, what do you say to her about your school and your popularity?
Well, I think part of it is actually cool.
So what do you say?
I tell my teacher all the time that I'm more popular than her at her uncle or wedding. I don't even go there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And Gavin, unfortunately, from Michigan, you can't even root for a professional football team either, right?
You can still root. It was a good thing our team went to playoffs this year, so we got to root a little longer.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, very good. So I brought in Kevin Tooley. Kevin.
Kevin.
Yeah, I'd say hi to Kevin. Kevin is nonverbal.
Hey, Kevin.
He was on our
Gavin.
show the other day, and you can learn more about him if you go to a past podcast on our show. And I just wanted to introduce Kevin. He's on the sidelines here. Wanted to meet Gavin and Brandi, and we're glad he's here. And I just Sharon. Hey, Kevin. They're talking to you there. There you go. And I don't think she's talking. Sharon, are you talking about Kevin or are you talking about Gavin? I think you're talking about Gavin, but maybe Kevin too. I've seen him around the girls. So not Dave Clark anymore, though.
No.
Do you think you're a chick magnet?
Yeah.
Yeah. He says yeah.
My man.
I was going to play it off cool, but I was like, nah.
He was going to try to play it off cool, but he said, nah, it's true.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Let's see. There you go. There's a Nicole. She says Gavin seems way cooler than she was in school, which is, I don't know if that's true. You're probably pretty cool, Nicole. And people are probably a lot cooler than they thought they were. You know, everybody thinks they're not the cool ones. And
then there are some people who just think that they are the coolest.
Now you gotta, there you go. But in your case, it has to be really true, right? So,
yeah.
Gavin, what's one goal you have in front of you? What are you shooting for? What do you want to do? What do you want to be? What would you consider a goal that you would like to attain?
Besides selling 1 million pulling each other along books.
Besides that.
Okay.
What about with the horses? Is that one of your goals?
What, being like a horse cleaner?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What is it, buddy?
My goal one day is to be a horse cleaner.
For special needs.
For special needs kids like myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great goal.
I think I've heard that Gavin's a pretty good photographer. Is that correct?
He's an incredible photographer. Yes, he's had art gallery showings and everything. So I think he thinks he's already accomplished that goal.
Oh, that's already done.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
hey, I missed the first couple minutes of the show. Did you cover how actually Gavin and I met?
you know, we did, but what's your perspective?
My perspective is that I read this article in the Fort Myers News Press, and I'll say this on the show, I don't really care. My library is in the bathroom, and so I
edit that out. No.
He actually brought it to our house like 5 years later and told me this has been in my toilet for 8 years. And I'm like, well, you want me to?
It wasn't in my toilet, but it was, it was sitting next to it. And I read this article, and I remember mentioning it to you, Doug. I said, I want to find this little boy. And I put the newspaper down in my magazine holder, and it got put away and kind of forgotten about. And then I picked it up probably 2-3 years later, saw it again. And meanwhile, we were doing the camps, and we were doing a camp in Fort Myers with the Miracle. And we were picking the Pulling Each Other Award winner. We were choosing the winner. And I remember you and I were discussing this, and Gavin's sister, Mackenzie, was one of the nominees. And so it ended up that Mackenzie got the Pulling Each Other Along award. And then because the family couldn't make it to the game, we awarded it. I'll never forget this because I got up before dawn. For some reason, Doug frickin' set up a television interview at some ungodly AM hour, and we all had to be out there, and it was before the sun came up. And I remember that it hit me while the cameras were rolling. It hit me we were honoring. Mackenzie was surprised at first because she didn't know it was for her.
Mhm.
But then when the cameras were rolling, it hit me. This is the kid. This is the guy. And as soon as the cameras stopped rolling, I went and I verified that this was who it was. And so that's amazing how that came together, because it was several years after the article was published that I finally found my man, Gavin.
It was
And now
meant
you're
to be.
stuck with him.
Yep.
Now it's
No, it
We're
was,
kind of a package deal, so that means you're stuck with me too.
it was definitely
not a
meant to
bad
be.
deal.
Definitely meant to be. So, what do you guys think of this new book, the Pulling Each Other Along, and how you guys got involved with it? And I'm talking to Brandi and Gavin here.
I think it's incredible. I mean, it was, first of all, it's such an honor to be part of it, and just to be a piece of this big giant puzzle of this book that I think is going to be a movement.
I would like to say something real quick.
Go ahead.
It's such a honor for me for my story to be shared in this book.
I agree. Well, it's an honor for us to have you as well.
Yeah. I think it's important to, I feel like especially these days, like negativity is all around us and it's almost like you can't escape it. And negativity can be so contagious. And this book is the exact opposite of that. And I feel like this book has the ability to make inspiration and limitless and honoring one another and supporting one another and pushing and pulling each other contagious, instead of all the negativity that we are constantly faced with. So I have a lot of hope for this book, and I think it's going to change a lot of lives.
Right. What's the chapter called in your book? I'm gonna let you guys share it. What's the chapter title? You remember?
I was like, I don't remember what we decided on, because it's a little long.
It
Me
is a
say
little
something
long.
long. Could you imagine? Todd, I don't do anything short, right?
No, not anything. It's a hope, Bray, and a side of Sass.
There, yeah. That's
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to figure out who is who.
Well, they're all Gavin.
Okay, got it. Because I would put you under the heading of a little sassy.
Where do you think he gets it from?
Okay, got it. No, I thought it was
Right?
his father.
No, you get it from me, and who else?
My pa.
His pa. That'd be my dad. So he gets it genetically.
Get it?
Yeah. So I want to let folks that are listening here just understand how they can help out a little bit. We're going to be launching a Kickstarter, and Brandi, hopefully you know these people, and they can go to pullingeachotheral.com, and we'll be sending out some links, and we want people to help out on the Kickstarter, literally the first day of the Kickstarter, which we're going to light that up sometime either late tomorrow or by Tuesday. And at that point, you can get perks. I'm not the best model in the world, but we're actually going to have these hoodies and hats and the book available. And one of the things that
way better on we want than you.
what was that?
Sorry.
You gotta say that again.
He said, and they might just look way better on everyone else but you.
Well, that's probably true. So we want to get them on more people than this old guy.
Dead on.
See, this is the Sass I'm talking about.
But you know, one of the things that I think is really, really important about what we're trying to do is we're trying to encourage people. We're trying to encourage people to go ahead and thank those that have helped pull them along in their lives. And so one of the things that I've created with the help of a lot of other folks is a greeting card that will be able to be purchased and go out to encourage the folks in part of this movement to thank those that have pulled them along, and to not wait and do it at a ceremony and a funeral, but literally do that while they're still breathing, while they're still living. And this is the front cover of the card, and the inside will look like this. It just says, "Thank you for pulling me along. You've been an incredible source of encouragement during my life, and I just wanted you to know." And then it's got a little picture of Dave being pulled by Ernie Pound from our children's book, A Pound of Kindness. And so those kind of things are going to be available. We're asking for your help. The goal is to get as many people involved We want you to pull us along so that we can help pull a lot of other people along in this world. Like you said, where there's a lot of negativity, we want to create a lot of positivity.
Yeah.
And
I think the card idea is amazing. I think so often people do things that pull you along and it doesn't get acknowledged as easy. But then when you do acknowledge it, people don't realize that the smallest things can make the biggest difference in people's lives. And acknowledging those and making that a common and normal thing to do, I just think it's going to make the world a more beautiful place. And it's World Kindness Week. So it's the perfect time to put that out there.
You think being an author of a kindness book that I would have known it was Kindness Week.
Jody's a teacher. She knows all those things.
Yeah.
Is she familiar with the book we wrote about Dave, A Pound of Kindness? She was Gavin's 5th grade teacher here when we first moved. So we had to print some more of those, but the Pound of Kindness book's also available on the pullingeachotheralong.com website as well. And if you have some young children, it's a great thing. Go ahead, Dave. You're waving your finger, man.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have seen, because it just made me think about Ernie Pound all over again. Just came up this week down here. It's gone viral, so I don't know if you guys may have seen this. Out in Immokalee, which, Doug, you know where that is, not very far from here. A boy with cerebral palsy was walking with a walker to middle school, and it started pouring rain, and one of his classmates came out and held an umbrella over his head while he walked. The principal got a picture of it, put it online, and that picture has gone viral. Just like Brandi said, the littlest act of kindness. Mm-hmm. Because then they interviewed the boy that had cerebral palsy, and it really meant the world to him because he was an incast all of a sudden. He experienced, probably some of the things that I did. Gavin has experienced in school, the negative things that you get. And this was a positive thing. So just a tiny little thing. I don't know if you saw that, but that brought back the Ernie Pound story to me all over again. This guy holding an umbrella over his classmate's head to protect him from the water while he was walking with a walker.
Right. I think the amazing thing to me about the Pound of Kindness story is what year were you in 1st grade, Dave? If you're able to tell people and you remember.
1999.
Yeah, 1999, 1958.
No.
So this act actually happened in 1958, and literally because Dave wouldn't forget that kind of act and mentioned it in his book, A Diamond in the Rough, and then we write a children's book, A Pound of Kindness. And now in 2021, we are talking about this story still today because of that one little act of kindness. And so if that doesn't tell you the importance of being kind to people, then to me, nothing will. And so I love the story that you just shared as well, because who knows, maybe a children's book will be written about that. It's just a small thing, but it's not a small thing. Right. These things are big, they're huge. And, we want those stories, more of those stories. And, and that's what Pulling Each Other Along is. We've got 30 more stories, 31 in all, that are sharing what pulled people along in life. And we've got some pretty big hitters. Todd, you want to mention some of those big hitters?
Yeah. We have Dick and Rick Hoyt, who are the father-son marathon team who competed in 32 Boston marathons, 1,100 races, with Dick pushing his son Rick across in those marathons. We have Zappos Adaptive. Zappos is spreading the world of adaptive fashion around the world. Runway of Dreams, that's an adaptive fashion show that helped create the Zappos Adaptive line. We have Jamal Hill, who is a Paralympic bronze medalist. He has a neuropathy, so he can't feel his body, below his elbows or his knees. Chris Nickick, who is the first person with Down syndrome ever to complete an Ironman, and today ran the New York City Marathon. So it was a big day for him. One more, John Cronin. He and his dad, Mark, run John's Crazy Socks. And John also has Down syndrome and runs a very successful sock company because socks are fun and life is fun and he loves to laugh. And what better way to laugh than with a great pair of socks? So it's on and on and on and on, 30 stories. And one quick one that I want to tell, and I'm not going to drop a name, but we had reached out to many people who had what we thought would be stories that fit the theme. And some people were excited and some people were apprehensive and some people didn't respond. And there was one pretty heavy hitter that we reached out to early in the first book and chose not to be involved. And then yesterday we got an email saying she sees what we're doing, and as soon as we do a second book, she wants to be the first one in it. So it's the Kickstarter campaign. Sure, it's to raise money, but the real goal is to raise money, to buy more books, to sell more books, to spread more stories. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's make the world richer through the stories of Gavin and Dave Stevens and Rocky Blyer. And that's the best part of the book is what we can do to change our little corners of the world.
Yeah, very, very well said, Todd. And I know it seems like a lot of the stories are sports driven, because we have a lot of connections in the sports world. Rocky Blyer, Dave Stevens, Dave Clark, Mike Smith. I mean, there's all these sports stories, but then we have like Ava Page, who is a young up and coming Nashville star. And we had her on a Pulling Each Other Along show, and she's actually going to show up on our podcast tomorrow. So if you're listening in, we're going to do a podcast tomorrow starting at 7 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to be introducing some more of the Pulling Each Other Along chapter writers. Rocky Blyer. So we have all these sports people, but then we have one of the stories that it didn't get mentioned. Who out there in the world remembers the game Operation? Everybody, probably almost everybody, when I talk to people about the Pulling Each Other Along book, they remember the game Operation. Well, one of the stories is actually, it's an incredible story about the gentleman who created that game. And so written so well by Tim Walsh, one of our writing contributors. And so there's more. It's not just sports, things like John's Crazy Socks and Gavin, his story. And, one thing we didn't mention when we were talking about the cover a few moments ago of the book, and I'm going to pull that up real quick, is that our very own Gavin is a model in that book, along with my son Gideon. And I'm going to put on my resume in the future, I'm actually an arm model. So my arm is in there. And
Wow.
So that's probably the only thing you'd want for me as a model, is an arm model, right, Dave Clark? And then we do, some people don't realize we actually have a female arm in there too, because some people, but she's the lady that was the model for that. She was so strapped together, it almost didn't seem like her arm was female, but yes, it was. Yes. And so for inclusivity and all those kind of things that we are trying to do, we had a female arm in there as well. And we have many females a part of this book, some incredible females, which go ahead and mention some of the ladies that are part of the book, Todd.
There's Lara Chagnon, who is, on the call because her and Tom never miss a call. Laura is a blind quadriplegic with a TBI. She was severely beaten when she was 26 years old and has recovered and has written thousands and thousands of poems and speaks in many prisons across the state of Massachusetts, spreading the message of forgiveness. There's Lauren Lieberman. There's Audi Angel. And if I can speak about Audi for a moment, Audi was a hip hop artist and was in a paralyzing car accident many years ago. And she starred on the TV show Push Girls, and right now is struggling with stage 4 cancer. So we're praying for her round the clock to see another amazing recovery. Who else? Oh, Amanda Clue.
Yeah, Bonnie Mann.
Bonnie Mann, my goodness, one of my faves. Bonnie Mann is a Hall of Fame female boxer.
Should have put you on the spot because if we don't mention them all, we should have our list.
I know, I'm under the pressure. Let me go through them. Amanda Clue and
well, I mentioned David Page.
David Page.
Courtney Runyon. We had her on the show Friday, big show.
Woke up one day paralyzed, and through positive attitude and faith in herself, she has pretty much recovered. She's a motivational speaker. And help me with the last name, Doug, because I'm not pulling it up. The one we spoke of today.
Oh my God.
Chris Accord and
Palmera.
Yes, Amy Palmera Winters.
She's an ESPY. She's an ESPY award winner too.
Yeah, and one last one I just popped into my head is Beth and Team Liza, Beth Hodges and Team Liza. Another triathletes that Beth pushes her daughter in triathlons.
Right, and one of the reasons we have so many of these pushing triathlons is because you, Todd, have been so connected with the Hoyts. They were some of the first people that we reached out to, and they all have different stories of why they do what they do. So it's the different chapters, and of course, Dave Clark. I put him on the scene right here. His story is actually chapter number 1, and I came up with his title of the book of that chapter, and I called it "Why We Pull." And and it's such a wonderfully written chapter put together, and it talks about really the reasons of why we pull. And so to wrap this up, I'm hoping that we can get your support. We are kicking off the Kickstarter this week. You can still go to our website, pullingeachotheralong.com, and you can download a free sneak peek of Terry Bradshaw, Hall of Famer, who wrote the foreword. That was a real surprise to get somebody as well known as Terry involved in the program. And then, of course, Rocky Bleier, we're hoping to schedule him. He was going to join us tomorrow. However, he got pulled into Monday Night Football game. The Pittsburgh Steelers play tomorrow, and he's going to be giving a veteran some type of recognition and award. And if you're not familiar with the Rocky Bleier story, just an amazing person, amazing man, really, really great. We have a video of him sharing his thoughts on pulling each other along that we'll be sharing. And so anyway, join us tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard. You'll get to meet several more. We'll do it a lot quicker as far as the people that are going to be coming on the show. I think Bonnie Mann's going to do her own show this week, and so is Jay Lawrence. So be looking for those podcasts. But if you can, do something on the Kickstarter. Every little bit's going to help. Share the message, share the links, the social media. The groundswell of this is going to be imperative for us to have the success that we think it can, and also want it to, and not just want it to fill our own pockets, although that would be nice. Because if you're not familiar, Dave and I put on numerous sports camps for children and young adults with all different disabilities, and we would just love to have enough funds to do more of those. And if you're not familiar with Dave's story, just real quick, Dave is the only professional baseball player that ever played on crutches. If that's not inspiring, nothing will be. And we have so many of these other things. Go ahead, Todd.
I don't care if I end it, but I have Brandi and Gavin's story in front of me. And I just want to share one paragraph.
Absolutely.
It says, the moments we have our Gavin are worth so much more than the struggles. Gavin's disease has altered us all. We've all lost portions of who we were, and the parts of who we hope to be are a bit more jagged. We have all sacrificed, but we make it work.
There you go. Good stuff. Good stuff. Great. We got any more last words, Brandi and Gavin, to encourage people to be a part of this? And give them some kind of wonderful words of instruction or encouragement. You're on the hot seat.
Me?
Yeah, you.
I couldn't hear it. Well, it was kind of cutting out there for a minute, so I
Okay.
couldn't really hear what was happening. No, we definitely we plan to have some book signings here. So if I'd love for everyone who has gotten on and watched to share. And once we get the Kickstarter launched and download the foreword, you won't regret it. It's fabulous. I really, really enjoyed the foreword myself. But if, you know, people always ask me, they always say to me, like, I wish there was something I could do for you. And this is something that you can do for us. This is something that you can do for so many people, is to join the Kickstarter and grab yourself one of these books and grab it for a friend and share the positivity and love and inspiration with those around you.
Absolutely. Well said. And hopefully we have like hundreds and hundreds of books sold right in your area.
Yes.
And we'll just do a big party where they can, instead of us shipping them, we'll pick them up. You know, I'll just fly in, maybe Todd will fly in, maybe Dave, who knows, and we'll just pick them up and have you sign them right there personally for them, and they get to meet you as well, and meet Gavin and the family too. I mean, it really, your whole story is a whole family story. It's not just even Gavin and you, of course. So, anything else, Todd, Dave? Any last parting words?
I just think the book is you know, when I go into locker rooms and speak to the players before the camps that we do, it has an effect that it really changes the player's perspective of what, you know, where they're at and how fortunate they are. And I think this book could have the same effect on anyone reading it. You know, it'll change your perspective. You know, maybe your problems aren't as big as you make them to be when you read some of these other stories in the book. And we need more of that. We need more of the positivity in life and changing one's perception. I think is a start in that direction. So, no, they got 31, well, at least 30 wonderful stories in the book.
31.
And hopefully, you know, people will jump on board. And just like you said, Doug, we would love to do more camps than we're doing, but we got to have the funding to be able to do that.
More camps, and people like Jamal want to teach more people how to swim that don't know how to swim. And there's, you know, Rocky Blyer wants to help more veterans that are dealing with trauma. You know, there's just all these little ancillaries of the people involved that are doing good things. And you know, we're asking for the people that are listening right now to help us, and you can help us, pull us along, but we also think that these stories are going to help pull you along as well. And with that, should we end with the music that I played earlier? This was Gavin music. Well, maybe I can't right now. It's on a commercial, so that won't work.
Dave can sing Happy Birthday again. That was horrifying.
Yeah. No happy birthdays. We have to have a real birthday coming up for Dave to sing, because otherwise it's probably pretty much non-tolerable. Anyway, so with that, we will, again, just thank you for listening in. I know a lot of you folks listened for quite a long time today, and thank you, Brandi and Gavin. Thank you, Todd, for all the work you put in this, Dave. And we'll see you guys tomorrow, 7 p.m. This has been a special edition of the Pulling Each Other Along show, and we are glad that you listened in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.